Section 5.1 Interactive Assignment Objective 3. In a national survey, college students were asked, how often do you wear a seatbelt when riding in a car driven by someone else? The response frequencies appear in a table to the right. For part A, we're going to construct a probability model for seatbelt use by a passenger. And then in part B, would you consider it unusual to find a college student who never wears a seatbelt when riding in a car driven by someone else? So I went ahead and put this into a table here, and we know that we have our response, we know that we have our frequencies. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find the total of the frequencies. So adding up our total is by adding up the total of the following. So we're going to take 145 plus 333 plus 577 plus 1029 plus 2404, and that gives us a total of 4488. So there is our total. And now what we're going to do is to find each probability of the particular response. So for the response of never, we had 145 that represented the frequency. So we're going to take the frequency and then divide it by the total, 4,488, which gives us 0.0323. Okay, next, we're going to take the response of rarely, which is 333. We're going to divide it by the frequency total to give us a probability of 0.0741. Next, we're going to take the response of sometimes, which is 577. We're going to divide it by the frequency total of 4,488, and that gives us a probability of 0.1285. Next, the response is most of the time had a frequency of 1,029. We're taking 1,029 divided by 4,488 to give us a probability of 0.2292. And then the last one, the response is always, we had 2,404, dividing it by the total frequency of 4,488 to give us a probability of 0.5356. Now in the question, they want us to round this to 3 decimal places, which is why I have gone to 4 decimal places. So we're going to round this by approximating it. So this tells us that we can keep this the same, so we have 0.032. Likewise, this value tells us to keep this the same, 0.074. Here, this 5 is telling us to round up, so this is 0.129. Here, this is telling us to keep it the same since it's a 2, so it's 0.229. And then here, this is telling us to round up, so we have 0.536. So let's go ahead and put our answers into our question. So there is our following answers. 0.032, 0.74, 0.129, and are all rounded to the nearest thousandths as needed. Now the next question says, would you consider it unusual to find a college student who never wears a seatbelt when riding in a car driven by someone else? So we're looking for the probability of never. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up again. So what we're looking for is the probability of never. Okay, so here is the probability of never, right? So the probability of never is equal to 0.032. Now this is for part B. Now for it to be unusual, okay, the probability has to be less than 5% or 0.05. So we're looking at comparing the probability of never to that 0.05. Well, if we take a look at the value, we know that the value of the probability of never is 0.032, and that's less than 0.05. And since it's less than 0.05, we would then say that yes, it is unusual. So let's go ahead and answer our question. So down here we would say yes, because the probability of never is less than 0.05.